It's Angie Garza, Director of Professional Learning and Educational Services for ROE 47, serving Lee, Ogle, and Whiteside counties. And we are back with you again on Facebook for another edition of our Teacher Talk this week, Season 2. And this month, and actually for the last several months, we've been having some wonderful conversations with area administrators, ROE staff, as well as our educators who are in the classrooms doing the hands-on work with students in order to kind of get a better peek at what's happening inside all of our wonderful buildings and districts and classrooms across the three-county area. And today is no different. We are very excited today to have some more conversations about technology use and implementation in the classroom. Today, we're going to be speaking with Matt Naftzger, who is the social studies teacher at Rock Falls High School. We'll introduce him in just a moment. But first, before we get rocking and rolling, I am, as always, joined by my friend, colleague, and co-host, Ms. Stacy Dingus, who is our digital teaching and learning specialist at ROE 47. Hi, Stacy. Good morning.
Good morning, Angie. I was just talking to Matt before we pushed record and was saying how far we've come with using tech in the classroom. I have to laugh about when it was, Google Classroom was introduced to me years ago as a teacher. So, we've been forced to grow how we're using technology, keeping up with our students' interests, and just kind of the needs of the curriculum and, keeping kids engaged. So it's fun to have these conversations because I'm learning along with the rest of us to see, what our great educators are doing in the classroom. So I'm looking forward to this.
Stacy, me too. We talked with Jenna Copeland earlier from Erie, and I spent some time after that conversation reflecting on the fact that, a few years ago, my own personal definition of technology integration might have just been, how are we getting students to use Google Docs, and really through these conversations and through the last couple of years, discovering that it is so much more, and what a great tool to engage our students in the learning and meeting them where they're at as digital natives. So let's find out a little bit more about what that looks like at Rock Falls High School this morning. So Matt Naftzger, social studies teacher at Rock Falls High School, welcome to Teacher Talk this morning.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. We are so excited to talk to you and find out a little bit more, not only about how you're using tech in the classroom, but just what called you to teaching and what's going on at Rock Falls High School this year. So we want to start off our conversation this morning with introducing our viewers to you, Matt Naftzger, as the social studies educator. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to your current position at Rock Falls High School?
So I was hired at Rock Falls High School in August of 2008. I was a college athlete at Ashford University, played baseball in Clinton, Iowa. And I, at first, never really gave teaching a second thought, but I was really into history. So I was really into history. So that kind of, along with being a ball player in college, was like, well, there's not too many things you can do with history outside really of teaching, especially in this area. So I was very fortunate to be hired here in 2008. I've been here ever since. I've kind of had some different positions over the years here at the high school, coached baseball as well as basketball for a number of years. My wife is the JV volleyball coach here currently. So I moved here in 2013. I was a graduate of Morrison High School, so I lived at Morrison for a while. So I've been in Rock Falls for a long time. More recently, it's really evolved into a lot of, hey, I'm not up in front of the class anymore with a marker on the whiteboard. I'm just kind of here at my desk, like, hey, you've got your Chromebooks, I'm on my computer, we're communicating digitally. And it's been an interesting transition, especially here over the last 3 years.
If we're talking about technology in the classroom, and if you had to make a list of some of your favorite tech tools, maybe that you like to use as a teacher, and then some that you find the kids really interact well with, what would some of those be?
So just this week was the Google My Maps week. So in my American history class, our study of the Civil War, we took 10 different battles of the American Civil War and we customized each student's Google My Map with those 10 battle sites. So in order to not only locate it, but provide the descriptions, the generals, the number of combatants in the field, to kind of help better understand the course of the Civil War. And then in my world geography class, we've been studying Latin America. So all students in the world geography class picked a country in Latin America and then had to provide 10 placeholders of points of interest within that country. So if I was researching Brazil, I've got several different locations, maybe in the Amazon, or I've got several different locations in Rio or Brasilia or wherever the points of interest are that they found in their research. So just in the last few days, we've been doing a lot of Google My Maps work. Some of the other tools that the kids really like to use, we do a lot of website design with Adobe Spark or in Google Sites. So they get the opportunity to take whatever content it is we're working on and basically build their own website based on that content. For my civics class, being as that they're incoming freshmen, they're really in love with Google Slides. It's what they're most comfortable with. But I've introduced them this semester to Google Drawing, something that's just a little bit different. Like, hey, I know you love slides. I know you're comfortable in the Google space. Let's try to use drawing as opposed to using slides all the time. You're still inserting text, you're still inserting pictures and web links and whatever else. It's just a little bit different look and feel to it. I've also, more so last year, I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it this year yet, but the students really like to create in Book Creator. So we get to, in a geography class, for example, kid picks Japan as their country to research, and they create this awesome book about samurai warriors and Tokyo and Mount Fuji and all these different topics for Japan and Japan's history, where in Book Creator, it's almost like a comic book and it looks really cool. The kids really get into it. I've used various other tools as well, but those are kind of the bread and butter. Like every kid comes in and wants to create Google Slides. And basically all they're doing is taking stuff from their doc and copying it to their slides. Like that's not what that's designed to do. So I've really started to try to transition students of all grades. Like, yeah, okay, we'll do slides, but let's try some of these other tools. And if we use slides, they're more collaborative slides. So here's a digital notebook. Everyone in the class is going to contribute maybe 2 or 3 slides to this digital notebook, as opposed to Jimmy just has 12 slides of his own, which is basically the same thing he typed in his doc already.
So Matt, I'm curious, and listening to you talk, I can tell you're passionate about this, and I can tell that this is something that you genuinely believe in and is good for kids. And so I'm just really excited and curious to know, number one, how did you start to make this transition? And how have you seen your students change as a result of kind of pushing them, maybe into some things that aren't as comfortable for them, or even just using technology more?
So I was actually on the digital learning space even before the COVID pandemic. So it wasn't just, hey, we're going to take notes. I'm up in front of the class. Now it's, here's the notes. I'll provide some, you provide some, we'll talk about it. And we don't even necessarily have to talk in class. We can communicate digitally. Doesn't always have to be classroom. It can be something as simple as, hey, you send me an email, share your slides with me. Hey, this looks good. This doesn't look good. More recently, I made a complete switch to the digital classroom, where I haven't handed out a piece of paper in over 2 years. And for some kids, that's a welcomed change. For other kids, they're like, I kind of struggle with this. My presidential project was due a month ago. I still don't have it turned in because they want to be able to get that piece of paper, write on that piece of paper, and then give it back to me. Like I said, I haven't done that in quite some time. So for some students, they really embrace that. For others, it's been a bit of a struggle, but I truly feel that, I hate talking on the phone. So I communicate maybe via text. Kids a lot of times are the same way. They communicate via Snapchat and all these other socials. That they don't necessarily communicate face-to-face conversation as much anymore. So I give them that opportunity in my class of, hey, you don't want to share with the group in a class of 29 other freshmen. You want to share with the group. 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 You want to share you can share with me and communicate in the digital space. I'll provide some feedback. You can ask some questions and we'll get on the same page with it.
That's awesome. So, when you had to then maybe dive headfirst into the pandemic that is COVID-19, it sounds like it wasn't that big of a change for your students.
For some of them, no. For others, it has been. So, for example, I mentioned the Civil War earlier. Today is our Civil War test, and it's a 2-part test on Google Forms. So, I basically had to take this 7 or 8 page, hit the photocopy machine and run off 25 of these. I basically took the same test, the same content, the same questions, and reworked them into a Google form. For some kids, that is a welcome change. Like I said, for other kids, they kind of prefer to have that physical piece of paper right on that test. It's funny because I'll tell them, hey, your Civil War test at the college level is going to look nothing like this. That's going to be the little blue essay book and you're writing about these battles as opposed to, clicking the drop down menu and choosing Antietam or Gettysburg or whatever the case. So the toughest part for me in going fully digital was the assessments. What was I going to do where I was handing out a test or quiz? I was handing out the physical, here's the map of the United States. Let's put a little asterisk where these battle sites were. I basically left all that on the shelf and had to digitize it as much as I could. That was kind of tough at first. Once I got through the initial process of transforming assessments, it's really become very easy. More so for me, it does a lot of the overhead and the grading and some of those things. The feedback is now instantaneous. Other times, if I do more project-based learning where, okay, we've picked a US president in civics class, we've got all these different topics. We got to research about that president. We got to present it in some type of digital format, share it with me. Well, now I have to comb through 80 of those projects, which becomes a little bit tougher. But when we do our Constitution test, it's all online. It's all on forms. The kids get the email when they get to class. The form allows me to customize all the settings, lock everything down. And in some cases, the kids really enjoy that. Other times, they kind of scoff at it. They'd rather just be able to write it out. But I like to encourage them, hey, point, click, type.
You had mentioned earlier that you were kind of living in the digital space, before it kind of became a thing to do in the classroom. So if you had an interest in it, that helps obviously the situation to use that as in part of your teaching. But we have a lot of teachers out there that I think are still a little apprehensive. Maybe they feel that push from their school or even from their students, because that's, the direction that a lot of students are learning. Do you have any advice or suggestions for teachers? Where do you start? What would be an easy thing to try for you, your comfort level as a teacher, and that maybe would go over well with students? Is there a go-to place when you need some advice or need to learn, the latest tech tool? What's the secret that you could share with area teachers?
I see even in our building here at Rockwell High School, a hesitancy to move forward with technology. My best advice is like anything else. If you don't know until you try it. I mean, I tell my 4-year-old that when he won't eat something, it's like, I don't like this. I'm like, you know what, buddy, I don't really like it either, but you're not going to know for sure until you try it. So it's maybe cliche or easy for me to just say, hey, dive right in, take the dive right in approach. When I get some good student samples of work on these various tools, I share them out with my teaching faculty and just say, hey, if you want some help on this, how to do it, how to pitch it to kids, kind of let me know. There's plenty of how-tos out there. I have our math people are really diving right in with Kami. I don't use Kami maybe as much as I should, but the math department's really going all in on that. And that's kind of what it takes. I don't know if I want to do this, or, oh, I've always done it this way, or, oh, what if it flops? Well, as teachers, I might have a couple, 3 lessons a week that flop, and that's okay. It's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of just getting in there and pointing and clicking around. I had one of my administrators say, how do I get rid of all these Google Classrooms on my calendar? I'm like, all you have to do, and at first I didn't think. I'm texting other teachers, people I know, like, hey, how do you fix this? How do you fix this? I come back up to my desk, I sit down, I point click for 2 seconds and figured it out. And it's really becoming more and more easy for us as educators to do that. If you just give that a shot, if you can break down that initial wall of, well, I don't think this is going to work, or I don't know how to apply this to math or science or language arts or social studies, just give it a shot and trust that you'll be able to figure it out, because it's not as hard as you might think, especially for, I mean, like I said, I've only been teaching for 14 years, but a lot of our veteran teachers, they've kind of just done it this way, and they're worried about kids cheating, and they're worried about plagiarizing, worried about all these different things. That's true, that's valid, but do your kids a service and at least try to embrace some of that digital world that they're living in, and give them an opportunity to explore it, as well as yourself. Sometimes teachers are like, I'm not going to do it. Well, just try it. It's not as hard as you might think.
Matt, that's some really great advice. I think if the last 2 years have taught us anything, it's okay to try new things. It's okay to not be successful, because, with all of those trials and errors, we always see those opportunities to grow, not only with our students, but with ourselves. So thank you so much for that reminder. And thank you so much for you yourself taking that risk and trying new things with your students. We know that as we reflect on our own educational experience, this world is much different than when we went to school. So, it can be a scary thing to try new things and to reach our students, but that's something that our kids can really connect with. So thank you so much for all of your sharing and all that you do and taking those risks for those kids in your classroom. We so appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on this morning. And if there's anything else that you would ever need out of me, or you want to see some student samples or anything of that sort, that what we're doing over here at Rock Falls High School in social studies, give me a shout.
Thank you for your willingness to share. I'm sure Ms. Stacy will include your contact information in our Facebook post for our teacher talk. And it's always wonderful to have people who are willing to share and connect with other educators. We need each other now more than ever. So thank you for that as well. Facebook friends, thank you for tuning in to this Thursday's edition of Teacher Talk. We hope that you enjoyed another peek inside one of our amazing classrooms in Lee, Ogle, and Whiteside County, as we've shared our conversation this morning with Matt Naftzger, social studies educator at Rock Falls High School. On behalf of Matt, Stacy, Dingus, and myself, we would like to wish you a very happy Thursday, an even better Friday, an amazing weekend, and we will see you right back here next Thursday for another edition of Teacher Talk.